Greetings, my friends. Jimmer Lins here with your Source Filmmaker Tip of the Day. Today is Tip of the Day number 71. I'm going to start off by saying, yes, I know I probably shouldn't call it the Tip of the Day anymore because it's been only the second Tip of the Day in about 18 months, but that's the title we started with, and that's what I'm sticking with for now. I'll let you know if I come up with something better. I apologize for being gone for so long. Over the last year or so, I've had some major changes in my life going on, as well as some health issues in my family that have largely distracted me from some of my hobbies, like playing with Source Filmmaker and making animations. But I am still around. I am still alive. I am still doing stuff. And recently, with the announcement of the Saxy competition, I rekindled my interest in Source Filmmaker, and having a little bit more time on my hands these days, I've started getting back into it and playing with it some more. And I've been working on some Saxy entries. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to get back into doing some of these tips by bringing you some of the stuff that I figure out while working with my Saxy entries, or maybe not figure out, but stuff that I think you might find interesting as a tip. I should also say, I know these tips are very basic, and a lot of times what we're going to be bringing to you is not stuff that more advanced Source Filmmaker users would find useful or interesting, or would be like, yeah, I already knew that. But I do hope occasionally that even the more advanced SFM users will get something out of it and go, oh, I did not know that. And especially people who are new to Source Filmmaker and maybe a little daunted by it will start feeling a little more comfortable with some of the things that you can do. So today I'm just going to very briefly take you through some of the options available to you when importing sequences using the import sequence dialog for TF2 models. And by way of demonstration, I'm just going to spawn a demo man here in my little scene. And I'm going to place him on the orange dot. And, he comes in just the standard default pose, which is fine. Now I want to make, let's say I want to have this guy running across the room. I'm gonna do something. I've got a scene and I want the demo man to be running across the room with his grenade launcher. Okay, so I want him to be running across the room with his primary weapon. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we can do to do that. Let's go import sequence, and the top here shows the model that we're working with, and you can rotate it around by clicking the left mouse button and dragging. You can dolly in and out with the right mouse button and so forth. So you do have some ability to see the model from different angles and preview the sequences you're going to bring in. The sequence list that you can bring in is going to be here. This is the list of all of the animation sequences built into the model. Every time Valve comes out with a new taunt, you're going to see new stuff appear in here, at least when SFM is updated. Every new thing that they do that involves an animation, if they release a new weapon that the character has to place their hands in a different location to use, that's going to be in here somewhere. One caveat, I think I've noticed that they aren't always consistent in their naming. They're largely consistent, but sometimes there's little idiosyncrasies, so you will sometimes need to look around for the sequence that you're looking for. In this case, what I want, as I said before, we want to have this guy running across the room holding his grenade launcher. So I'm going to say run primary, and now I'm just going to leave all of these at the default. Don't worry, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what these do in a moment. So everything's at the default. I say click, great. Except now there's a couple of problems. First, if I start the animation, he doesn't move. He's not even doing the breathing bobbing thing. He's just sitting there. Also, if you notice, the position of his hands is not suitable for the grenade launcher. It is suitable for the sticky bomb launcher. And by way of demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead. I'll bring in a grenade launcher. We'll bring in the grenade launcher, and I'm going to bind the weapon bone of the demo man to the grenade launcher's weapon bone. Now, normally, if I do this, see, but obviously his hands are in the wrong position. See, they're not there. And if you look at it carefully, and if you have any experience with TF2, you know that his hands are actually in the position for the sticky bomb launcher. This gets back to that thing where I was talking about the naming conventions aren't always consistent. Technically the demo man's primary weapon is his grenade launcher, this one, and his secondary is the sticky bomb launcher. But that's okay, because we can fix this quite easily. So what I'm going to do is say import sequence again. Now remember, when you import a sequence, it actually will import it only for the time selected down in the motion editor or the in the frame editor. So when you do this, make sure you've got the time selected that you want to apply this to. I've got all times selected, so it's not that big a deal. This is more about showing you what the sequences look like than it is about how you import specific time frames. But keep that in mind because it'll only import it for selected time. And you do have to be in the motion editor to do this, or in the frame editor. So what I'm going to do is say, so it wasn't run primary, obviously. It was run, maybe it was run secondary. Yeah, see, look, if I dolly in now, we can see his hands are in a different position. If I go run primary, okay, great. Run secondary, great. So we'll do that, leave all the other options at the default, and now he's in the right position. Hooray. And yet he still doesn't run. Why not? And I will show you. Let's re-import one. We'll do this again. We'll just, again, because I've got all time selected, it's going to re-import over the existing changes that I made. So run secondary. We know we need to use secondary. Now, if you look over here on the right of the sequences, you've got these options for body pitch, body yaw, move Y, and move X. Since we said earlier we just want the very simple animation of the guy running across the room, I'm going to say move X, which is that causes him to move forward. Move Y is to sidestep or strafe. So Y is to strafe, X is to move forward or backward. I can actually have him run backward. So we can say, and depending on how far you move the slider depends on how fast he will move. And it basically, typically you're going to just do max or none because that's going to be provide the best look. Although you're certainly welcome to experiment with it to get the exact look you want. So, okay, now I've got generate root motion checked. That is important because if generate root motion is not checked, the model will stay in one place, because essentially what generate root motion does is it tells the sequence import that I want to take the root of the model and I want it to move with this motion. If I leave it unchecked, he'll just run in place, which is another thing that can be useful, and I'll show you why in a moment. So we say generate root motion, and then, okay, that looks really good actually, because now we've got the green dots. And if I go back to the beginning of time, actually, because the playhead was in the middle, it imported it at the playhead and applied the animation across all time. So in a moment, he'll come running through the scene and go dashing out. So great. That's exactly what we wanted. We wanted the demo man to be running through the sequence and doing that. That's great. So now though, what if I wanted to do something different? I'm going to import a sequence, and I'm just going to say, and notice if we do this and we just say import ref, or we import something else and we don't apply any motion, it gets rid of all that motion. So that's a good way if you want to not have to undo a bunch of stuff. You can, again, if you've got it all time selected, it will reapply that motion, including the root motion. So let's say I want to import the demo man running with his secondary, and I want him to be running forward, but also I want him to be kind of like moving at an angle. Okay, so he's strafing at an angle. And we notice now that it is, if we go back to the beginning of the shot, now he comes in from a different direction, and he's doing the strafe forward. And I could do the same thing and have him go sideways. I could have him strafe backwards. I could have him strafe at an angle. You can play with these settings to get exactly the animation sequence that you want for the model, depending on where you want it to go and so forth. And this is a quick way to bring these guys in. A couple of other options available to you for some of these sequences, like if I bring in run secondary again, if I uncheck the generate root motion and I just say move X, this is something I like to do when I'm storyboarding. Because when you're storyboarding, what you're doing is you're setting up all the shots, but they're all static. They're just, what I do, and I'm sure other people do it differently, but what I do is I'll have a series of static shots showing the basic framing elements of the shots that I want. Later I come back and I refine that and I add the animations and stuff. But since I'm storyboarding, let's say I want to have a storyboard of the demo man running and just doing his thing. Oh, I think I did that wrong. So I'm going to import a sequence. Just import the ref sequence. Okay, so now he's just sitting there. Okay, so let's do this one more time. Import sequence, run secondary, and I'm going to uncheck generate root motion, but I'm going to leave him move X on. Okay, now what happens is he's running in place, and what this allows me to do, if I switch over to the scene camera, let's make this that's very dramatic. Let's make this a fun little shot here. So he's running along, and I want to get a shot of him running from a low angle. Let's say like that, okay? But I don't want his legs positioned like that. What I'm trying to do is get a static shot for either a storyboard or a poster, okay? So instead of posing him manually, I might do something like this, especially if I was in a hurry. And then, okay, I like where he's at, or maybe I can go a little further. I can pick exactly where I want him to be. Okay, well, his foot is, yeah, that works. And then, excuse me, with the demo selected and the pose that I want, I just grab the playhead selector here and I scrub it across. And now he's statically posed in that sequence. He's not moving. But what I can do is I could take a screenshot of this, or I could export it as a poster or what have you. I use this kind of technique all the time for bringing in the poses that I want, or the real rough poses. Later I'm going to go back and throw everything out and redo it, but it allows me to kind of frame everything and make sure that it is fitting in the right sequence and that the shots are going to work. So when you're storyboarding, this is a great way to get quick and dirty poses for your storyboard shots. Real quick, a couple more options for the import sequence that you might find interesting. So run secondary. We're just going to stick with this one for now. Uncheck generate root motion. Let's say I'm still wanting to be running. You've already seen what move X and move Y do, but I still want the run. What body yaw will do, actually, let me zero this out so he's not distracting us. Body yaw lets you turn him. So if you want him to be running but turned, that's a good way to do it. So he can be like looking off to one side while running. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. So if we do this and generate root motion, see now what he's doing, he's running in place. And if I do the playhead thing here again, now I have a completely different shot because he's running in place and looking over. So I could do something totally different, and it's still an interesting shot. One more thing that is interesting is the body pitch. I can make him look up or make him look down. So you can change his yaw and pitch. Now the options available might be different depending on, they might not even exist. So some of these options may or may not exist for for all of these. So you will need to look at the specific sequence. Sometimes the sequence is just a static one. I mean, he just does his taunt flip, and that's it. That's the flip taunt, where he's starting and he's saying, come on, let's flip. And there aren't any options for that because that's a static animation that is baked into the model, and there aren't any variables to it. You can also combine sequences. See if which can produce some weird effects, but and frequently will look really weird. But like if I say run secondary, I guess the flip start is overriding that. So I would encourage you to experiment with different types of sequences as you play around with these, because playing around with merging all of these different sequences can produce some interesting effects. But in general, there are a lot of options available to you for importing sequences. Sequences are a very, very simple way to get some quick and dirty, rough shots if you're not interested in doing all the fine detailed animation and posing all of the fingers and the eyeballs and all that crazy stuff. It's great for storyboarding. It's also great for coming up with very quick scenes and stuff like that, just having fun. So if you're looking to do some scratch stuff, or if you're looking to do some storyboarding, or if you just needed to be able to figure out how do I get the demo or the pyro to look exactly like he does when he's running through in the game, and I don't want to have to record it and then crop out all the extra crap, this is a good way to do it. I hope that was useful. Today was your tip of the day number 71. I am Jimmer Linz. I do thank you for listening and watching, and I hope that you have a great day, and I will see you again soon for the next tip of the day.